What a weird introduction. So, firstly, I want to acknowledge the traditional owners, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and pay my respects to elders past, present and future. My proposition to you today is that we live in the Pacific. We are a Pacific nation, but on our doorstep are parts of the Pacific where people live in worse conditions than we observe in many very, very poor countries around the world. And we as a nation have spent billions of dollars pumping money in there to make that change. But it's really only when you start to put different sorts of partnerships together that we've started to see more change happening in parts of the Pacific. And so today, really, I'm going to talk to you about the power of partnerships, the power of leverage, the power of companies getting engaged not as part of their CSR work, but actually as part of their business strategy, because otherwise that work isn't sustainable in most businesses, because the person who drives CSR usually has their own pet projects, and when they move on, the company moves on. So there's a piece about sustainability that I want to talk about that's broader than the SDGs. Also, my proposition is that aid in its traditional forms is not delivering. It's very rarely outcome focused. It's very rarely measurable. And for the billions of dollars that I see, for example, pumped into the Solomon Islands over a very long period of time, nobody thought that paving the main street to allow people to move freely was a really important thing to do. And so you see aid focused on little components that never add up to anything really big. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you three stories, really, three examples, because I could talk for days about this, but three examples where it's been pulled together, we've pulled together things in a different way. Two of them are CARNIVAL examples, and because that really fits with the proposition that a business strategy that has community engagement, community development, community outcomes as a core part of a business is much more sustainable over time than something that you drop in as a CSR goal. So my first story is a partnership between P&O, one of the CARNIVAL brands, and Save the Children. It began as a result of really us pulling into some of the ports in the Pacific we went to when I first started in 2007, and looking at communities that had been completely hollowed out. Most of the adults have to leave their communities to get work, they go to the cities, so what you end up with in communities are the very old and the very young. The infrastructure that we would take for granted, a place where you could have your babies safely, somewhere where someone immunises you, a childcare centre, any of those things were completely absent in those communities because they didn't have enough scale for them to be high on the priority list of aid investment. And so when we spoke to those communities about why they might want us to come, so our proposition as a business, we wanted to visit places where the communities felt there was enough benefit for them to invite us back. So every time we went, they went, yes, they're here, not, oh my God, they're here. And that proposition had that community say to us, we just want the stuff we see everybody else get. We want places where if we're sick we can go. We want someone to come and visit us at least once a week to deal with illness, sickness, complications with labour, all the things that happen in every other community. We want also a place where our kids can learn, because unless our kids learn, we know they can never get off this island. And kids learning, when I went to the school, their textbooks were a 1967 set of Encyclopaedia Britannica. Most of the information in that is now wrong. And so their education was based on something we thought was true in 1967. Can you imagine? Not a single piece of tech, nothing in there that would prepare you for a modern world. So the partnership we cut was with Save the Children, who had people on the ground, who had capacity to build, and who had infrastructure that we didn't have. So we're a tourism operator, a cruise ship operator, not a builder of infrastructure. And we agreed with Save the Children that in every one of the places we went, we would put a childcare, early childhood centre, we would put stuff in the schools that was relevant to the 21st century, and we would build a health centre. And That took quite a while to get off the ground because, as all of you would know, particularly those of you in social enterprise, high levels of distrust. We speak completely different languages. The idea of what the pace at which they operated and the pace at which I wanted to do it were a million miles apart. And the dynamic of the way they prioritise and the way we were offering to drive priorities and do it faster caused a lot of friction at the beginning. So it took quite a long time to get it going, but it got going. And in all of those communities, once we put those facilities in place, we as a commercial operator then went to AusAid and said, we now need recurrent infrastructure into those communities. And we probably had more pull, whether you think that's right or not, we probably had more pull than another not-for-profit saying we've got a set of priorities rather than there being a set of priorities. So as a result of those three things coming together, the infrastructure in those communities has changed. The adults have come back to their communities because there's infrastructure there, there are jobs there. There are things for people to do there that are different to what was there before. And at the end, I'm going to show you a 1-minute video on the development of small businesses in those communities that also bring people back to their communities, which of course helps sustain culture. Example 1. Example 2 is a Unicef example. So I'm also chair of Unicef, as you heard. At Unicef, we're trying to think differently about what we do. So we're part of the UN, we're a big organisation, we've got people all over the world. We fall into the same trap as aid agencies, which is we do the same stuff. So we're very well-meaning, people are incredibly well-intentioned, they do really hard work in communities, but nobody has much time to step up and think differently. So we're running an innovation agenda. And the 2 bits of innovation that we've ended up running with in the Pacific, one is the delivery of vaccines to remote communities. Kids in remote communities in the Pacific die of the diseases we immunise our kids against. They die of whooping cough. They die of measles. They die of all the stuff that we've virtually eliminated from our community. Why? Because to get a vaccine to them requires someone to carry a backpack for 2 weeks and keep the vaccines at below 6 degrees Celsius in an environment where the average temperature is 35. So you can imagine a fraction of the vaccines that actually arrive intact. So how do you deliver it differently, again, in the 21st century? Drones. So we put out a contract or a request out into the universe and said, can anybody work with us to develop drone technology that will get those vaccines from a city in a country like Vanuatu, 400 kilometres out to one of the islands where we'll have a health worker waiting to get it and everybody lined up for their vaccines. And 2 propositions came back, one from Germany, one from Melbourne. The 2 young guys in Melbourne understood Pacific distances and temperature better than the folk in Germany because they thought a long way was, 100 k's, not as far as we want to go. And that is being trialled at the moment. That is being funded by a partnership with Rotary and a partnership with the technology guys and a partnership with one of the tech companies in Australia and a university. So that partnership has brought together the funding, the innovation. Now that is a game changer for those communities whose kids die at 50 times the rate of children in Australia from preventable disease. So that's But we needed to think differently to make it happen. The second example happens to be funded by P&O. Is an example in Papua New Guinea. Again, newborn babies have a terrible, and of course when you look at your SDGs, you know the survival rate of babies in many of our Pacific communities is terrible. Newborn babies in the Pacific die of exposure. Why? During the day, it's hot. During the night, in many, many places, it's cold. Adults, our bodies can moderate the temperature. Babies have no temperature moderation. They die at night. And the adults aren't aware of it until they wake up in the morning and they've got blue babies. How do you fix that? Again, we put out the innovation challenge. How do we fix it? A young guy's invented a tiny little band you put on newborn babies. When their body temperature drops below 1 degree from normal, it beeps. and it says to parents, adults, wrap me up because I'm going to die. And that's trialled in Papua New Guinea and the highlands at the moment, and already the mortality rate has lifted, the survival rates have lifted 20% in 2 months. So that's a game changer. But it would never have been funded through the normal systems. It needed a partnership. It needed money that came from a different source to make it happen. It needed different thinking. My third example is a partnership with UMI. Again, that's a cruise business, DFAT, Innovation Hub, and an NGO in the Pacific. And it's about helping people build small businesses. There's tons of innovation. There's tons of entrepreneurs. There's lots of people who want to take their cultural artefacts, the things they know really well, the things they grow, and make them into small businesses, like many of you in the audience. But they don't know how to do marketing. They've got no access to support for that. So this partnership is really about giving people the opportunity to do stuff that creates sustainable communities, creates jobs, creates businesses, leverages the things they know, leverages their cultural differences, the things that actually customers on tourism operations, whether it's cruise ships or anything else, want to buy, because you want to feel like you've touched a place through its culture, not just buy stuff that can be mass-produced in China. So this idea is about creating entrepreneurs. There's about 30 businesses in Vanuatu. There's about 40 in PNG that we've created. And I want to finish with letting them speak for themselves. Thank you very much.
Living here for me, it's like paradise. It's quiet, it's relaxing, people are so friendly. It's just make me feel like this is my home.
For us, we do what we do for living, but our economy is very small. So our community here depends a lot on tourism, and so we are all trying to make something work, you know?
The challenge for me is marketing. That is a worry for me. I don't know where to go. I'm still lost, and I need people to assist me to attract the right type of customers to achieve what we want.
The UMI program is specifically designed to help entrepreneurs in the Pacific so that they can support their families, their communities and their region.
The program is a partnership between TDI, Carnival Australia and DFAT, and the program is around helping local entrepreneurs develop out new product and to build a business around that product. One of the beautiful things about what we're doing is helping those entrepreneurs to actually get cruise ready or appropriate for a tourist.
Our guests are looking for meaningful, authentic, personal experiences, way more than just a beautiful beach.
The value of culture for me is the number one. And I think even from the minute you walk off the boat, it's fantastic supporting the local culture.
If the people here on the community level benefit from our visits, they're going to want us to come back. So watching those entrepreneurs walk onto the ship for the first time, I could feel their excitement was tangible.
It inspires me that people want to share their knowledge, to share that culture and be able to ask for our input.
TDI came and it helped us break down all the blocks that you need to think about when putting up a business together.
If we build up the nations around us, if we build up their capability, if we build up their economies, we then have peace, but also we have economies that we can trade with and grow our own businesses.
For me, I think this is the future. Our opportunity to lead not only development in the Pacific and sustainable tourism development, but more broadly across the planet.
If you have a dream, take the step to make that dream become a reality, because everyone can make a difference for their family, for their children, for the whole community, for the whole world, if you like.
Vanuatu is formed with different cultures, different languages. It's not just go in the ocean and swim. You can show them the unique culture of the country, just to remind them this is where we come from. This is us.